the energy portals and space-time gates of the gods, quote-unquote, and where they are. And I'm also in the description box below going to leave a link below for you for the latest video concerning the disappearing alien portals and various very strange particles found in the Skinwalker Ranch of Utah. And you have to see it's about 10 minutes, but very revealing. It was just posted July 20th, a few days ago. But going back to this, I just wanted to it's in Utah, but these are things that people are now, with their technology, figuring out that do exist. Now, the ancients knew of these energy gates of the gods and where they were. Around the earth there is an electromagnetic grid, the nodal points of which are at geometric distances from each other. The ancient Greek temples and structures are located at geometrical distances from each other because they're built at nodal points of the Earth's ley lines, the electromagnetic grid. The nodal points and lines, called telluric currents, of the Earth's electromagnetic grid coincide with areas such as areas of electromagnetic disturbances, areas where the geomagnetic field and solar radiation have maximum or minimum intensity, areas rich in minerals, ores, and oil, areas of the atmosphere with high or low barometric pressure, planetary zones with intense seismic activity, central points of ocean currents and eddies, migration routes of birds, animals, and fish, live creature breeding grounds, human population concentration centers, areas of prominence for religions, philosophy, sciences, arts, and buildings of special architecture. So these nodal points are strong electromagnetic fields, which, according to the lexicon code of the Greek language, when they change, create openings in space-time called time portals or time gates, or astropiles, or energy gates, or energy channels. 12 points of the Earth's electromagnetic grid show particularly strong electromagnetic disturbances. These points are in the Pacific Ocean, off Japan, in the southern region of Tibet, in the border of India and China, in the Mediterranean Sea, between Libya and Crete, in the Atlantic Ocean between Florida and on the island of the Bahamas, and on the island of Bermuda. This point is known as the Bermuda Triangle. In the Pacific Ocean, off San Francisco, in the Pacific Ocean between Australia and New Zealand, in the Indian Ocean west of Australia and south of India, in the marine area south of the Cape of Good Hope, in the Atlantic Ocean off Uruguay, in the Pacific Ocean off Easter Island, at the North Pole and at the South Pole. In these places, ships and planes disappear, and a bright greenish mist is often observed. Such a bright greenish haze was also observed in the Philadelphia experiment, in which the battleship Eldridge disappeared and rematerialized. The story about the Philadelphia experiment begins when the U.S. Navy experimented with creating a strong electromagnetic field around warships so that enemy torpedoes would not only never reach their metal casing, but also return from where they came from. In the experiments carried out by the U.S. Navy, a huge electromagnet, which was charged by the ship's generators, changed the magnetic behavior of the ship, misleading the torpedoes. Then a bright greenish haze due to the ionization of atmospheric molecules by strong electromagnetic fields was observed for the first time. The U.S. Navy's next goal was to make warships invisible to enemy radars by creating a strong electromagnetic field that would eliminate them from the visible spectrum of light. But the result of the experiment conducted at the Philadelphia Naval Base in 1943 aboard the ship Eldridge was for the ship to disappear from Philadelphia Harbor and rematerialize almost at the same time in the port of Norfolk, Virginia, 350 kilometers to the south. Soon after, the ship reappeared in the port of Philadelphia. Just before the ship disappeared, a bright greenish mist appeared, covering the entire ship. From the above, it follows that, therefore, both the disappearance of the Eldridge ship, which was accompanied by bright greenish fog, and the disappearances of ships and planes in parts of the Earth's electromagnetic grid that present particularly strong electromagnetic disturbances, which are also accompanied by a bright greenish mist, are associated with the opening of time-space portals. Now, according to the ancient Greeks, Greek sanctuaries are located at geometric distances from each other. Regarding the case, Aristotle states in his Politics, Book 7, paragraph 1331, quote, "The houses established for the worship of the gods should be located not only in the proper place, but also in the same place, apart from those whose place is defined by the law separately or some oracle useful. Even the sanctuaries of the rural areas must be symmetrically distributed, some dedicated to the gods, others to the heroes," end quote. Then we have the gates of the gods. According to Homer's Iliad, through the heavenly channels the gods move with their flying chariots. Rhapsody E, verse 749 to 751. Quote, "The gates of the sky held by the hours, because they have been assigned the great sky in Olympus to open with dense cloud and to close," end quote. Now, in the video of the Skinwalker Ranch, I'll leave below for you, it's only 10 minutes, but you should see it, the latest information, they have viewed UFOs. So something very strange is going on there. Now, going back to this, regarding the case, the testimony of Theophilus Kairis about unidentified flying objects that he saw in April 1822 in the area of Olympus, Mount Olympus. That's supposedly where the ancient extraterrestrial demigods were, which he recorded in his diary, is typical. Quote, "We arrived at a place called Bursani, where we stayed the rest of the night. We also saw a strange fireball phenomenon whose apparent diameter was as small as a speck. It split into two spheres, and the larger one was bright and bluish and very fast, and the smaller one was fiery, and it lasted for 3 seconds," end quote. Also from the book of Genesis, chapter 28, verses 10 to 19, according to the book of Genesis, through the heavenly channels the gods come into contact with people. Quote, "Jacob left Beer-sheva and was on his way to Haran. When the sun was setting, he reached a place where he stayed for the night. He put a stone for his head and slept there." I guess the stone was for his pillow. "In his sleep at night he saw a ladder resting on the earth and its top touching the sky. Angels of God were ascending and descending on her, on the ladder." And it's feminine because the article in Greek is iskala, meaning the staircase. Then the Lord stood over the staircase and said to him, "I am the Lord, the God of your fathers Abraham and Isaac. This land in which you sleep I will give to you and your descendants. Your descendants will be as many as the grains of dust on the earth. You will expand west and east, north and south, and in your person and through your descendants all the nations of the earth will be blessed. And I will be with you and guard you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I fulfill my purpose," end quote. Jacob woke up frightened and said, quote, "Truly the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it," end quote. "What an awesome place. Here is nothing but the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven," he said. In the morning when he got up, he took the stone he had for his head, set it up as a sacred pillar, and poured oil on top of it, and he called the place Bethel, house of God, whereas before it was called Luz. Now in Aristotle, Politics, Book 7, paragraph 1331, "Wherever there are temples, theaters, Asclepius were the places where people went to get healing. They usually stayed there for 10 days or so, and they had fasting every day, they washed every day, they had confession every day, and they also heard music, saw art, and they had theater, one tragedy and one comedy every day. So, and of course a lot of them were healed. Now, it had to do with the frequency. These areas were built over special ley line nodes. So the theaters, Asclepius, pyramids, specific churches, sacred columns, temples or stones, sacred caves where there are nodal points of the Earth's electromagnetic grid, either after the contact of people with gods at such points, as in the case of Jacob, or after a suggestion from the oracles, as Aristotle mentions in Politics, Book 7, paragraph 1331, which were also built in such places that there could be communication with the gods. Now, let me just remind you why the temples had columns. This is a Delphi temple. They had columns because of the fact that the columns would bring up the Earth's electromagnetic force through the columns, and the people would lean on the columns or touch them or stand between the columns, and it would be beneficial for the frequency of their own body. We're made up of electrons, we're an electromagnetic machine. So these columns were actually, even the Temple of Jerusalem had columns. It had two huge ones, and it had the arcade around it that had columns. So now going back to this, regarding the existence of focal points in sacred caves, the evangelist John's reference to the existence of a portal of time within the cave of Patmos is characteristic. Revelation of John chapter 4 verse 1, quote, "After these I saw a gate open in heaven, and the voice which I heard before sounding like a trumpet addressed me and said, 'Come up here that I may show you what will happen in the future,'" end quote. And while regarding the existence of focal points in specific churches, we know a lot of the first churches were built on the ancient temples, now at the same exact locations. Now the following examples are typical. At the top of Mount Taygetus outside of Sparta, a pyramid is a small church of the prophet Elijah, in which a luminous sphere appears around midnight between 10 o'clock and 1 in the morning. At this point, it should be noted that the gate of the time gate, the space portal of Taygetus, within which the immortality of a human body is achieved, is located inside the pyramid, and that Laconia means conical stone. Las equals stone and cone. Laconia, of course, is the Greek name for Sparta. Now, under the chapel of the prophet Elijah in Imitos, near Athens, there is a chasm which in the past seemed to be illuminated. The small church of Saint Patapios in the Gerania Mountains is built in a cave. Okay, that's near Corinth, near Loutraki. I've been there. His church is inside the cave, and that's also where he was. His relics were found. He was put on the wall, against the wall of the cave, and a wall was built in front of him to save his relics. So, and also the Holy Mother Tripini in Agios was built on the spot where a French sailor had seen a light come out of the earth at night when he was shipwrecked there. In the middle of the village of Petra in Lesvos and Mytilene, there is a huge rock on which is built a church of Our Holy Mother of the Rock, Panagia tis Petras. This small church was built on the hole that leads deep into the rock that was built there, because at night a bright light appeared from the depth of the hole. Now, the debacle of the human body, the body. The human body, being in an energy channel, can dematerialize, hence turn into a wave of photons, and move instantly to other parts of the universe, or to other parts of space-time, or to parallel dimensions. Now, there have been some saints that have had translocation. They've appeared in one place, and then a second later, they've appeared somewhere else. Now, also within an energy channel, the immortality of the human body can be achieved. The human body can become immortal when it is transformed into a photon wave, because by transforming into a photon wave, it is transformed into energy. And in order to achieve the dematerialization of the human body within an energy channel, in principle, it should be in its center at certain times in the day, 12 noon or 12 midnight, or on certain days of the year, at the vernal equinox, March 21st, at the summer solstice, June 21st, at the autumnal equinox, September 23rd, and at winter solstice, December 22nd. Also, in order to be able to dematerialize, the human within an energy channel, he must rise to higher frequencies so that he can tune into the higher frequencies of the energy space. The atoms that make up the cells of the human body vibrate at frequencies between 62 and 68 megahertz. That is, at frequencies between 62 million and 68 million hertz, since 1 megahertz is 1 million hertz. So atoms have an electric charge. When an electric charge oscillates, it produces an electromagnetic wave. And as the atoms that make up the cells of the human body vibrate, their electric charge oscillates, and the oscillation of their electrical charge creates an electromagnetic field around the body. This electromagnetic radiation emitted by the human body is called our aura, or our bioenergy. When the human body vibrates at higher frequencies, it emits more electromagnetic radiation, causing the aura to become brighter. And I have seen people with bright auras, and I'll tell you who they were. They were the worst of sinners that had become very devout Christians. Now, going back to this, the halo of the saints is nothing but the aura of their body that has become brighter because they have been able to ascend to higher frequencies. This is also why the saints had reached the point of healing, mitigating, becoming invisible, moving objects at a distance, reading the thoughts of others, and seeing the future. The change in the vibrations of matter explains all the so-called paranormal phenomena. For example, invisibility is achieved when the cells of the human body vibrate on higher frequencies. Aka Lucy. I think it's on Netflix. Now, the same goes for emaciation, because when the cells of the human body vibrate at higher frequencies, their molecular structure is diluted, resulting in a decrease in the weight of the human body. Also, when man vibrates his body cells at higher frequencies, resulting in his molecular structure being diluted and his weight reduced to the point where the body becomes lighter than water, he can walk on the surface of the sea. This is, of course, uncounted miracles that our Lord Jesus Christ performed. Now, finally, when the atoms that make up the cells of the human body vibrate at higher frequencies, their electrical charge also vibrates at higher frequencies. The electrical charge of the atoms pulsating at higher frequencies produce higher energy electromagnetic radiation, capable of creating an electromagnetic field around a nearby material body. Thus, this nearby material body will move with the force of the electromagnetic field that will exist around it. Even spontaneous human ignition, the phenomenon in which a person burns to ashes in a few seconds for no apparent reason, is due to the change in the vibration of matter. Man can spontaneously combust when the atoms of which the cells of his body are composed vibrate at high frequencies, since motion means heat. Jesus Christ and Apollonius Timaeus had the ability to heal, raise dead, transform, become invisible. Jesus reading people's thoughts, telepathy, move material objects at a distance, telekinesis, levitate and be at the same time in two places, multiplanus. Pythagoras had the ability of polystasia. When Iamblichus prayed, he was raised 10 cubits above the earth, and his body took on a golden hue. Father, the elder Saint Paisius, had the ability of clairvoyance and invisibility. Saint Francis of Assisi, the Saint Thomas Aquinas, Saint Teresa, Saint Joseph of Cupertino had the ability to levitate. The vibrational frequency of the atoms of the human body changes with meditation and prayer, since prayer is also meditation. Now, I'll tell you what else happened to my son and to me. To my son, it happened right after he was 13 years old, he went to confession, and I was waiting for him outside, and in the Greek confession, the priest puts his stole over the head and does an exorcism prayer. And when he came out, he said, "Mom, I'm not going to tell you what I confessed, but I'm going to tell you what happened. And I don't want you to make fun of me. And I'm only going to say it once. When I walked outside of the church, when I was walking out, my feet were not touching the ground." Okay? That was, of course, a personal present given to my son by our Lord Jesus Christ to the young Christian, telling him, "Thank you, my son, for coming to me. It was me that cleansed you, and this is a gift from me." Now, to me, it happened when I was fasting for my family, fasting to consecrate my family I did it, I'm not going to say, well, what I did, but it was 3 days a week and 3 times 40 days. And while I was doing this Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, by Friday, when I was walking home one day, coming back from work, my feet were not touching the ground. Really. I mean, these are spiritual experiences that are really, really graces from God. Now, and they do happen. Now, going back to this, and I'm not a lightweight. I'm a heavyweight. Okay, still my feet were not touching the ground. But going back to this, the necessary condition for man to rise to higher frequencies when he meditates and prays is fasting, avoiding animal food, abstinence from alcohol, cigarettes, drugs, in order to lighten the body, and also I would say the spirit. Animal foods, alcohol, beverages, cigarettes, drugs lower its bioenergy. Now, regarding the avoidance of animal foods, Apollonius Timaeus said, "My food is light and much better than the sumptuous food of others. It's precisely this singularity which characterizes my way of life. It keeps my senses in indescribable purity, allows nothing to cloud them, so I can foresee everything that's happening or is going to happen as if a shiny mirror," he says. Although in order for a person to rise to higher frequencies, it's necessary to meditate for many hours on a daily basis, the changes can occur during meditation from the very first moment that a person begins to meditate are important for both his body as well as for his psychology. The brain emits A and T waves and the body relaxes deeply. The level of lactic acid in the blood drops from 11 milligrams to 7 milligrams, which indicates muscular relaxation. Skin conductivity, the indicator of a person's relative state or rest or tension, is reduced by up to 300%. There's a 16% drop in oxygen consumption, and this also happens to you when you're in the Holy Liturgy of the Church. Sometimes, I'm sorry to say, when you're listening to the cantor and the psalms, and the hymns, sometimes you doze off, and I'm not the only one guilty of that. All right. But you're so relaxed, just like a baby in its mother's embrace. That going back to this, there is a 16% drop in oxygen consumption. The heart muscle relaxes and rests, and the number of breaths decreases from 16 to 7 per minute. Reduces blood pressure and hypertensiveness, averages from 5 to 9 and 13 to 8. The activity of the left prefrontal lobe increases, which is associated with the production of positive and optimistic emotions. Also, when a person meditates often, their intelligence index increases. They have reduced stress indicators, lower heart rates, and need less sleep to rest each day, while if they do stay up all night, they don't need more sleep than normal to recover. And this I've translated from a Greek article, Conductivity, The Secret Real Truth, from a Greek article. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.